But I was on a panel with Quinn Norton in New York about a week after Aaron died. And this kind of symposium that we were at, everybody that was there really seemed to know Aaron and have a story about him. So I immediately started filming, and both to kind of understand what had happened, his story, and to kind of analyze this big kind of wave of anger and frustration and sympathy that was coming at that time, even from people that didn't know him. So that's essentially where the documentary started.
And then, for you and your family, at what point did you get involved, and how was it, working with Brian,
Yeah.
story out there?
So I know that Brian contacted my dad, what, a week after?
Yeah, yeah.
And then there was some back and forth between that. We filmed our part almost a year ago.
Yeah.
From today, was it last July or last August? And then you had done interviews with Noah before that, even in March of last year.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, there was the Sundance announcement that we heard about before, and then everybody but my mom came out to Sundance and did everything there. And then between then and now, there's just been some back and forth, right? There was a screening that Noah went to in Seattle 2 weeks ago, last week.
Yeah.
So, and then there's this. Cool.
Yeah, it's a real short period of time to make a documentary, as far as documentaries go normally. So it was talking to people pretty quick. The conversation with your dad was really very moving for me. I had lost a friend to suicide about 4 months before that, and so I was still trying to figure that out when this happened. And I'd also become a new father myself. So there was something about, I think it was an hour-and-a-half conversation I had with your dad that really kind of, it really did, it showed me the sort of personal side and moved me in a way that really I was already fired up about the kind of political things, the things that Aaron was fighting for, but it was that kind of combination of those things, that personal story and the rest, that really kind of made it.
Get any questions?
Yeah.
Does anybody have a question? Yeah.
I'm curious if you screen this film or planning to screen this film at MIT.
Yes. So the question is, if we screen the film at MIT, and we actually have done a small screening. It was one of the kind of smaller screening classrooms at the Media Lab, and it was a really interesting discussion. There weren't that many seats, so we couldn't get that many people in, but it was a fantastic discussion. So we're taking the film back to MIT in the fall. We hope to fill one of their main kind of conference, one of their main lecture halls. And I hope to bring your dad and get Hal Abelson and some of the rest of the people there to have a really rigorous discussion. There's obviously a lot of sort of feeling there.
Yes.
Is the film under Creative Commons license?
Yeah, so the film is releasing June 27th in theaters across the country. I think we're in 25 cities. Same time, it's video on demand. If you want to support us, there's ways to buy the film, iTunes and all of that. As a part of that, on Vimeo, we're doing a Creative Commons license, which is a non-commercial share-alike license. That's happening the same day it's in theaters. And we're working on a deal where we're going to try to donate some of that money to charity that Aaron liked called GiveWell.
So when you do that, does your footage then become sort of able for other documentarians?
Yeah.
Anybody else like that?
Yeah. So Creative Commons, you're sort of choosing these sort of rights or these freedoms that you want, these different various licenses. You can't. We're restricting commercial uses of the film, but the film can be remixed. Yeah. I mean, it can be shared. Obviously, we're not going to prosecute people for sharing. But we're doing it. I think in the spirit of Creative Commons, and really what Creative Commons was meant to be used for. It's similar to what Cory Doctorow does with his books, but we did do a kind of unported license, which means it can't be remixed.
Yes.
What was the reaction of Silicon Valley? They must have known who Swartz was. And did any of company CEOs or people that must have Googled, Zuckerberg must have known who Swartz was. Was there any reaction from Silicon Valley? And also, was there any blowback from the Justice Department? Did they have any reaction subsequent
to Silicon Valley? You seem like you're
Sure.
ideas.
I mean, there was like some reaction from individuals in Silicon Valley right afterwards. I mean, if you looked at Reddit or Hacker News after the event, there was quite a bit of uproar and discussion there. Afterwards, with regards to CFAA reform, there were some talks between Google and our family and other people about what could be done. And I know that there are certain firms in Silicon Valley who are truly against reforming the CFAA. Google seemed middle of the pack, I would say. I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people are supportive. Google's a large organization, right? But I don't know how much more is like public knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Were they outraged that the prosecution by the Justice Department of this 26-year-old programmer?
you know what?
Were they
During
outraged? Were they angry with the Justice Department and with the Obama administration? I mean,
yeah, I
that
mean,
was my reaction.
so after his arrest, Aaron didn't talk a lot about the case. So not a lot of people knew it. Not a lot of people were following it. I was following it because I was following lots of hacker stories. But during that sort of 2-year legal nightmare that he went through, there wasn't a lot of outrage. There wasn't a lot of people talking about it. And it certainly didn't get the same kind of press that other hacker cases did. And the reason for that is he didn't want to bring his friends into it and potentially expose them to this legal nightmare.
So has that prosecutor become a judge since? Or what?
So no, so the second part of the question was backlash against the government on this, and there was a huge protests after Aaron died. Big petitions trying to get Stephen Hyman and Carmen Ortiz out of office, and that amounted to nothing basically. So they're still in.
I mean, those people were not promoted for what they did.
Well, yeah,
That,
they're still in the same position.
That's unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the best that came out of much of that kerfuffle. Like, it was my understanding that Carmen Ortiz was up for a judgeship, right?
Yeah, her political career is not going well, but but they're still both in the same position that they were in at the time.
The point that I took from this was that the corporate titans that in Wall Street that brought the American economy and the international economy to its feet.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you how rich and powerful, like the point was made in the movie, they dined with the president and everybody else. They don't have that power. It just makes the difference between 99% and 1% so clear.
Yeah, I agree.
Right down the middle.
Just a couple things. Is there some kind of movement in regard to pushback on malicious prosecution around so much gray area around what's going on with the internet? Is there some follow-up on that? Because obviously these are very malicious kind of charges, and they're really building them up. And then, is there any recourse? Because these are young people that are really having idealistic views as to what democracy is and what freedom of information is, and there needs to be a certain amount of citizen pushback. Number one. Number two, real quick, is would you be willing as a filmmaker on the larger screening at MIT to film it? And I'd love to see the play and interplay as an extra. I'd love to see that, because that is really the beating heart of a lot of things going on there, and I'd love to see that catch fire and and kind of come out of the lethargy that MIT is kind of.
Yeah, I really hope to film that. Yeah, I'm really hoping that Penn's dad can come because he's been an outspoken critic of MIT for obvious reasons. Yeah, we hope to get that to be a really kind of rigorous debate. I mean, generally speaking, the faculty and students have been really supportive of the film and of Aaron. I would say that, what I was pushing on hard was the administration and the general counsel, and they really just want this to go away. They want the story to go away. They want the film to go away. They don't want anything to do with this. So there's a real tension within the institution that we're seeing, and hopefully we can emphasize that tension, bring it to its to a really serious discussion when we go. First part of your question kind of goes to what he was just saying, the pushback on tech laws. CFAA, this awful law that was created in the 80s, that obviously needs to be reformed. It has been stalled. I mean, the effort, Aaron's Law, was stalled in committee. I mean, part of that friction that's kind of, you know, part of the hurdles with that law are tech companies, who, big tech companies, who have found that the sheer vagueness and broadness of that law is useful to go after their smaller competitors or people using their networks in ways that they don't like. That was an unexpected kind of source of friction in trying to change what is obviously an outdated law. So we hope the film is going to reinvigorate that.
I just want to say thank you for including the bit about pancreatic cancer at the end. I think that's going to bring it home for a lot of people. And could you say Aaron's favorite charity again, please?
He seemed to, he liked GiveWell. This is GiveWell. GiveWell, yeah.
It's a San Francisco-based charity that picks one or a few charities at the end of every year that do the most good for the world, based more basically upon how many lives can they save with the smallest amount of money. For a while, they were supporting malaria nets, because you could spend very little money on malaria nets and save lots of lives. But yeah.
He was impressed with their approach, so we're going to try to give some of the film proceeds to GiveWell.
One right back there.
Yeah, so in the documentary, which was phenomenal, so thank you. You guys put a lot of his mentors. Just curious what people Aaron admired outside of kind of the tech realm.
Who they were, or what they thought, or?
Were there other people, whether literature, acting, or things completely separate from, technology specific, that you just admired about their thought leaders?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while, and a lot of the stuff I have not remembered all that well. But the reaction afterwards from many of the people who had never heard of him, who he admired, or who just never heard of him altogether, was really outrageous. Was phenomenal. Like the thing that I remember most clearly, I think is mentioned in the documentary, the post that was on Hacker News. Why I'm upset about Aaron Swartz. Just this basically random person who looked at what happened and didn't know Aaron, didn't know about him before he killed himself, and the reaction that he had. And it seemed to me that many people who Aaron admired, or people who didn't know Aaron or Aaron didn't know, had a very similar reaction too.
Yeah, and I think, I've read a lot of his blog at this point, and a lot of his work. He's a very prolific writer, and he was clearly interested in a broad range of things that were non-technically, specifically sort of technical, in the technical kind of realm. At one point, I think there was a year when he did like 100 book reviews or something.
I mean, that was most of the years. He read more than 100 books.
And he would review these things, and so you'd read these reviews, and they weren't shallow reviews. They were well thought out. Where he was clearly struggling with these different issues. Even movie reviews and stuff. I remember a review of the Batman movie that talked about game theory and talked about the Joker and this thing, and he actually took it apart in a way that I thought was really insightful and interesting. So to your point, I think clearly he did have mentors, people like Tim Berners-Lee within the tech world, but he was certainly this intellectual curiosity expanded well beyond that.
Two questions, Henry?
Two questions. Yeah.
Did Aaron leave a note? He's somebody that very clearly wanted to make statements. And I'm curious if he did, and if he didn't, if you had any thoughts about why that was.
He didn't leave a note. I mean, anything other than that is just pure speculation. I really don't know. Yeah.
Congratulations. The one thing that's really spoke to me is the character development of your storytelling of this film is really about making this person human from the very first part. He identified with this really smart kid, and you brought us right into that. And I think a lot of times when you read the headlines about hackers and stuff, it's this kind of very anonymous person out there, and there's no picture. And I think you've done an amazing job of bringing that through. And I'm wondering what's next.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I was thinking about that a lot when I started the film, and there was a lot written about Aaron at that point, and some of it was pretty good. But I thought it was all little small kind of glimpses, like just little tiny pieces of what was a big story. So I was very much trying to tell this sort of full arc of this remarkable person's life. My next project involves hackers, surprisingly. It's another story, a story that some similar territory, but I'm also revisiting a film I made for Frontline 12 years ago.
So, sorry, we're gonna have to wrap it up.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Roxy at 7 o'clock. Film screens again tomorrow.